Hinkson Christian Academy was founded in 1991 to serve the small but growing American missionary community in Moscow, Russia. Our current enrollment is 126 students in kindergarten through 12th grade, and students are primarily American, Korean, and Russian. However, the community has grown more diverse in recent years, and we now have students from Brazil, Armenia, Ghana, Rwanda, French Cameroon, Canada, Ukraine, Great Britain, India, and Uzbekistan. Of course, as a highly diverse international school, it is expected that we would have high ESL numbers. Currently, we are at about 30%. That number could be higher, but the school board has set a cap on ESL numbers. We also have a learning support center that offers assistance and NILD therapy to our special needs students. The SWOT analysis, cultural audit, environmental scan, and observations revealed a number of pros and cons within the HCA community as they relate to cultural proficiency. The interviews and survey were particularly insightful. It is clear that the teachers of HCA have a profound love for the students and deep commitment to their personal and academic growth. Our teachers raise support and come to Russia as missionaries, so they really see their jobs here as ministry. Also, as you can imagine, HCA is an incredibly diverse community, and that diversity is celebrated. Despite little previous training, our teachers have made sincere efforts towards cultural proficiency in their classrooms. The Georgia Leadership Institute for School Improvement listed several key elements for a climate hospitable to learning. Among those are a sense of student and staff safety, and respect for all members of the school community. One of the pros that was identified is the implementation of the Olveus Bullying Prevention Program last year. This comprehensive school-wide initiative emphasizes character development and a school culture of respect. In the year and a half since adopting the program, already the improvements in school climate are tangible. While many pros were identified, attention was also drawn to a number of areas which require attention if ACA is to be a culturally proficient school and community. First, HCA finds itself in the midst of an identity crisis. In the last 28 years, the demographics at HCA have shifted considerably. Whereas the school was founded to serve the American missionary community, it now serves not only missionaries, but also diplomats and business families from a number of countries, not to mention the growing number of Russian families seeking quality Christian education for their children. Redding and Corbett, in their work Shifting School Culture to Spark Rapid Improvement, a quick start guide for principals and their teams, write, "A successful school culture is clear about its North Star, for the school and for each student." The vision of HCA has become somewhat unclear. Efforts will need to be made by leadership to clarify the vision and purpose of the school in this new season, so that goals can be set and met for the wider community as well as individual students. Another issue raised was the lack of diversity on the school leadership team. While the school board includes representatives from Russia and Korea, the school leadership team is almost entirely American. The school board and president will need to consider inviting additional members to the leadership team to ensure at the very least that the main cultural groups at the school are adequately represented. Next, for the last few years, there has been a sharp rise in our number of ESL students along with a complete turnover in ESL staff. Our ESL program needs to be completely overhauled and a long-term plan put in place to ensure that students are being equipped to succeed in this academic context. While the ESL program needs to be evaluated and improved, even more critical is the evaluation and improvement of our social studies curriculum. During interviews, several teachers mentioned that they are not using the current curriculum for social studies as written because of its clear emphasis on Western, particularly American, history and culture. Thankfully, our teachers have the cultural sensitivity to create materials that highlight the diversity and differing perspectives in our school, but our aim is to find, or if necessary, design a curriculum that reflects our diverse community while giving the kids a much greater understanding of the world in which they live. According to Redding and Corbett, effective instruction for any student requires that the teacher respects and leverages each student's cultural background, taking advantage of each culture's richness to help students make connections among ideas. This is a different instructional approach for many teachers, and making the shift is no small task. It requires that the school overall, as well as each teacher, undergo an intentional reorientation to the craft of teaching. Our teachers are making incredible effort to leverage our students' cultural backgrounds and experiences, but we cannot expect this to happen without some direction and guidance. This leads to the biggest area of improvement for HCA moving forward. A major focus of our professional development will be cultural proficiency. Each month, as teachers gather for training on topics that are relevant to their current issues and needs, Future professional development topics will include cultural intelligence, diversity within the body of Christ, partnering with families, serving our Third Culture Kids students, understanding and leveraging cultural diversity in the classroom, helping our English language learners students succeed, and the guiding principles of cultural proficiency. I have gained so much from this course, not just as an educational leader, but personally as well, and there is much that I've taken from the life and ministry of Paul. First, educational leadership, as with any form of transformative leadership, requires a certain level of personal sacrifice and overcoming opposition. Redding and Corbett write, "It takes courage to be in the vanguard of change, since efforts will, without doubt, face resistance in some quarters. Few have faced the amount of suffering and opposition Paul faced for the sake of his calling and message. His vision and commitment were so strong that he was able to withstand incredible suffering for the sake of those he served, namely Jesus Christ. Life isn't easy, and being a teacher isn't easy, but our students are worth the sacrifice and effort. There will be opposition, but we must have the courage and moral leadership to work for change." Paul was not only a courageous leader, he showed incredible wisdom in relating to different individuals and cultures. Not only did he take the time to understand them and relate to them on a cultural level, he saw them as individuals with unique needs and concerns. Additionally, he used incredible wisdom in communication, skillfully using all four modes of communication. Perhaps the greatest lesson I have taken from the life of Paul, however, is the hope that my suffering and difficulties are not in vain. Whether in our personal or professional lives, we all face incredible difficulties, but we can be encouraged that those difficulties will bring about fruit and life in our lives, but also in the lives of those we serve. We are growing more and more into the image of Christ, and that reflects into the lives of our students and colleagues. And so, as Paul writes, we do not lose heart. I really looked forward to this class, but when I began reading our primary text, The Culturally Proficient School, I honestly had some concerns. Initially, I was concerned that the focus of our text would not be applicable to my situation, since the issues we face are very different from those of a typical American school district. Eventually, I came to understand the principles in the book that can be applied in any context. John L. Lyons, in Cultural Diversity in International Schools, Building Bridges of Understanding and Learning, writes, "International schools, places of learning that by definition contain high levels of cultural diversity, are hugely relevant to this discussion. Over the past 5 weeks, I have come to understand that these principles are critical to school leadership anywhere in the world. In fact, cultural diversity is not a good indicator of cultural proficiency." Both times I completed the receptivity scale, I scored as culturally proficient. This was no surprise. I have spent years living overseas in vastly diverse communities, serving a number of different ethnic and socioeconomic groups. I truly value diversity and am willing to do whatever is necessary to make sure that barriers are removed and students are given every possible opportunity to succeed. Now, having completed the course, I realize there are many more subtle issues that the receptivity scale did not at first reveal. In particular, I came to realize the many blind spots I have in relation to diversity and cultural proficiency. While my intentions were good, I simply did not have a complete understanding of the complexities of culture and diversity, and I had not sufficiently examined my own attitudes and perceptions, or the full reality at Hinkson Christian Academy. Having completed the course, I do not believe that I have arrived. Cultural proficiency is a lifelong journey of self-reflection and growth, one that I wholeheartedly welcome. While I feel I now have a fairly good understanding of cultural proficiency, there are specific areas that were brought to light in which I would like to grow. For example, I would like to do more study on cultural intelligence and how it relates to the different cultures we serve. There are numerous resources available that I would like to begin studying. I would also like to receive more training in teaching English as a second language and special education. These are two very important groups in our school, and as a leader, it will be hard for me to lead the changes necessary without a better understanding of their needs. In the Culturally Proficient School, an implementation guide for school leaders, Lindsay Roberts and Campbell Jones provide 3 tools for cultural proficiency: the continuum, the guiding principles, and the essential elements of cultural proficiency. I have discovered that the continuum is an excellent tool for self-reflection and goal setting. I believe many of our colleagues would place HCA at cultural proficiency, but I believe there are still areas of cultural blindness and precompetency that exist. I welcome such information, because if we are not aware of the reality of the situation, we can't act to improve it, and our students suffer. I believe the necessary self-reflection involved will be difficult for some of our teachers, but at their core, they want what is best for our students. As leaders, we need to frame this understanding in a way that honors them as professionals and appeals to their desire for excellence and the success of their students. The continuum, guiding principles, and essential elements are all helpful tools for understanding and articulating cultural proficiency. They provide guidance and standards for leading a school in cultural growth and understanding. Most importantly, they have given me a system and language for articulating what is necessary to serve all our students well. Intuitively, I understood these things, but I did not have the skills to reflect and determine what changes need to be made in my leadership and the leadership of our school. I am now much better equipped to lead others through the continuum in small matters as well as school-wide change. There are two guiding principles in particular that have impacted me during this course. During the interviews and then through the reading of our text, I was struck by how little I have considered the role of the family in education and the lack of understanding we have as school leadership about the family dynamics of many of the cultures we serve. We have not been as strong in our understanding of the role of the family, and we have to grow in this understanding if we have any hope of successfully partnering with parents. As a school, I do believe we do very well when it comes to many of the guiding principles, particularly valuing diversity, seeing students as individuals as well as part of a group, and understanding the impact diversity has on our community and education. We have not been as strong, however, at acknowledging, adjusting to, and accepting some of the differences in our community. These are areas that will be addressed regularly through professional development over the coming year. Lindsay Roberts and Campbell Jones write, "Learning to become a culturally proficient leader requires an individual to go beyond improving his behavior to shifting his perceptions about who he is and what the point of his practice is." I have certainly experienced a paradigm shift over these past 5 weeks, and already I find myself framing observations and decisions within the framework of cultural proficiency. I am asking myself more and more if I am doing the best I can to serve every member of our community. I am interpreting events and situations through a whole new lens, and I am learning that I have more room to grow in this area than I first realized. John L. Lyons writes, "It is important to remember that despite the best passions and intentions, the diversity-conscious international school is never achieved as a final, once-and-for-all accomplishment. Rather, it requires a slow, focused, arduous, multifaceted process involving the active engagement of all major stakeholders, a school climate of open and honest dialogue, a willingness among administrators and board members to divert resources for needed training and activities, and a flexible framework of rules and policies that permits progressive change where needed." As this course draws to a close, I have learned a great deal, much of which we are already applying at HCA. We are reminded, however, that this is a lifelong process, not a once-and-for-all accomplishment. My hope is that as a leader, I have just begun the journey and will continue to grow and lead my school in growth for the benefit and success of every student that comes through our doors.